hold open where both Derek and Brandon are going to explain in 1 minute, as if they're talking to the board of directors, what is Active Directory and specifically why they need to worry about securing it. The whole issue, though, they're going to do it together and they only can do one line at a time, pinging back off of each other. They have not rehearsed this at all whatsoever, so we'll see how well it goes. Derek's going to start first. Derek, you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Ready? Go.
Active Directory holds the keys to the kingdom.
If anyone were able to get hold of the keys to the kingdom, it could be disastrous or at least of major impact to business.
This means that someone internal or external could get these keys.
And if they do get the keys, it is a massive amount of work and effort that we would need to pay for in both time, resources, budget to get those keys back or changed so they can no longer impact or affect the domain.
And if they get the keys, we never know exactly what they're going to be able to access. They could take information as well as encrypt all of our stuff.
In addition to that, they could make it unusable using something like, say, ransomware, which we're seeing in the news a lot, triggering IRP. We've got a bigger problem on our hands than just Active Directory being compromised at that point.
And if we aren't able to look at being hacked into Active Directory, they could be there for 6 months and trying to do a restoration is out of luck.
Awesome job, guys. Let's get this going.
Welcome, everybody. The CISO series video chat is ready to begin.
Welcome, everybody. It is the CISO series video chat, and today's topic is hacking Active Directory, an hour of critical thinking on securing the keys to the kingdom, as the two of them just explained in less than a minute. Good job. Very impressed. All right, our guest, the one who has grown a very large beard over COVID, is Brandon Greenwood. He's the CISO and VP of Security and IT over at Overstock.com. And we also have Derek Melber, who also has a beard, working on maybe not to make as large as Brandon's. He's the Chief Technology and Security Strategist over at Tenable. All right. Huge thanks to Tenable for sponsoring this very video chat. In fact, Tenable has sponsored many video chats with us, so we are thrilled, or many things with us. In fact, I think this is their first video chat, but they sponsored many episodes with CISO series in general. All right, 6 different ways to participate. Those of you who are regulars, of which I see a ton of you regulars here on already, tune out at this point because you've seen all this stuff. You can participate in the chat room, as you see already. You can submit bad ideas, of which we have Dutch on board. He's got lots of bad ideas. In fact, the winner from last week, Paul Lanzey's on board. He's got horrible ideas as well. Sandeep, Jason, all have awful ideas. I'm sure that's what they'd like to be known for. But we also want your unique strategies as well. So you can type unique or bad idea. And the reason I'm stressing unique over great ideas, and please feel free to go far afield with this, is this whole discussion is about hacking the topic of Active Directory. We don't want to discuss the generic stuff we all want. We want to sort of push our boundaries. So I'm always for bad ideas leading to good ideas. So it's very possible some of these bad ideas are going to lead to some unique good ideas as well. You can join us on video, anybody, with a Bring Me On. Just type that in, and Andrew, the producer, will try to bring any of you on to ask a question or make a comment anytime during the show. Ask a question. You see there's a little button at the bottom of the screen, bottom right. It says ask a question. Go ahead, put one in there. We will field as many of those as we possibly can. If a lot come in, we'll need you to vote for the question. So please also vote for questions as well. All right. And just to show you the schedule, 2 minutes explaining to the board. They just did that. Your bad ideas and questions, of which the bad ideas are coming in already. Great. The poll will go live at 20 minutes past the hour, so vote for your bad idea. But also at that team, make sure you also give us your unique tips. You can give those to us right now, too, as well. We will, at 30 minutes past the hour, play the Department of Yes. And then at 30 to 40 minutes, you will vote for your favorite questions. A unique tip poll will also go up. Actually, vote for your favorite questions anytime. 40 minutes past the hour, the 2 people that I chose for the Department of Yes game will be our best bad idea contenders, and they will face off to determine whose bad idea truly was worst, and our 2 guests will determine that in a what's worst face-off. Then we'll have our last question and final advice, and then we'll have our meetup. We are not going to use the classic icebreaker gather round. It's now called Gather Round, where the one-on-one meetups. We've had some problems with that lately, so we're going to start using Toucan again. We used that a long time ago. It's actually improved, so this allows you to sort of drift in and out of conversations. It's a lot of fun. Stick around for the meetup at the end of the hour to have face-to-face time with all of us. All right. Last thing is I want to mention is our next video chat will be next week, Friday, 9/24, Hacking Threat Intelligence, an hour of critical thinking about what to trust in order to take necessary action. And guess what? Look at that. At the very bottom of the screen, it says next Friday, Hacking Threat Intelligence. You know what you can do? If you were to click that link, you would open up another window, would not take you out of this, and you can register for next Friday's video chat. Remember, those people who register early are automatically entered into a raffle to win an awesome CISO Series fleece. So make sure you register early, which is by next Tuesday. But why not do it right now? All right. So that'll be up there the entire time. So you can click that at any time. It will not take you out of this video chat at all. All right. I am enough with that. And I should turn this thing off because we've had that on long enough. All right. Now I'm going to ask you, the two of you explained very clearly what the issues around Active Directory are. Let's now talk about the attack vectors. What are the attack vectors we need to worry about around Active Directory? I'll throw to you first, Derek.
So the attack vectors are a multitude of things. First of all, as the attacker obtains credentials, they can look at those credentials within Active Directory to see if any of those credentials have privileges. Mm-hmm. That's one. Two, there are settings within Active Directory that are easily enumerated, which can be hacked. Mm-hmm. So these are the two primary areas that we really need to secure.
All right. Good, pretty concise, clear explanation. Brandon, I'm assuming you agree with that. Would you add anything to that?
I do agree. I think as part of that, with the local access that a threat actor may get to a system, there's also the vector of elevation of privilege. And I think if we've seen anything over the last 18, 24 months, things like zero login, print nightmare, serious SAM, these are all some 0-day, some non-patched vulnerabilities that is going to allow a threat actor to escalate or elevate their privileges and ultimately perhaps jump into a domain admin. They'll be able to do much more as a local admin than a non-privileged user.
I think, by the way, we've just broken a record. In the first 7 minutes of the show, we have 20 bad ideas. So that's impressive. Way to go, everybody. So yes, I always think, we subtitled this The Keys to the Kingdom, Derek, and I kind of envision Active Directory kind of being like that little spot in the center of the Death Star that if you hit it, oh man, does the whole thing come exploding and crumbling down. You're nodding your head like it is that sort of sensitive and susceptible, yes?
100%. And it's, to be honest, it amazes me when I look at Active Directory environments, how insecure they are. And we really need
pause right there. Pause right there when you say how insecure they are. When you say I look at them and how insecure, what is it that you see that, your head like spins like, oh my God, do they realize what they're setting themselves up for? Like, what is that thing you're seeing?
It's honestly settings that they never look at. For example, admin SD holder. I have never seen an organization look at admin SD holder.
Excuse my ignorance. Usually, what is SD holder? What is the SD
so
holder?
If we break down the three terms, right? Admin is administrative accounts. Right. SD is security descriptor. Mm-hmm. And holder is, it holds the security descriptor for all administrator accounts, right? And
that
so if
seems
I'm
like
the
something
attacker,
you want to protect.
Yeah, I'm going to put my information on admin SD holder, and then AD puts that permission on every account.
Wow.
Kind of scary.
Brandon, you, I'm assuming, are familiar with this. What are the levels of protections then that you can put, or is it the fact that it's on every account that's unavoidable?
Well, I think specific to admin SD holder, not only making sure that the value or data, nothing is added to it, but also permission changes on that object are something that a defensive mechanism that you should put in, maybe not from a preventative standpoint, but from a detective, right? So if you're able to identify a permission change, any type of change that way, it's definitely something that would catch your eye. Other ways for domain enumeration, I think, are, privileged objects with unprivileged users, let's say. Unprivileged users with maybe more access than they need, say DC sync rights on the domain. Default security descriptors, schema changes within maybe the last 90 days, computer and group, managed service accounts or objects, services in particular with passwords set over 90 days or haven't changed in quite a while, anonymous access to Active Directory. There, we could go on and on. Those are just some of the things that come to top of mind as I've seen as either part of penetration tests or which these folks are obviously emulating, these black hats, the threat actors, or have read about as an after the fact to a company being compromised in some way.
By the way, anyone, hold on a second, Derek, just anyone, if you want to ask us any questions regarding Active Directory, if there's something that you have a major bugaboo about securing your Active Directory environment, these two gentlemen, I'm sure, can help in that respect. I'm sorry, Derek, I just cut you off there. What were you about to say?
No, I wasn't going to say anything. I mean, I completely agree with Brandon here. I mean, the list is massive, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to add to his list, primary group IDs, SPN users that have privileges, Kerberos delegation, the list goes on and on and on.
All right, so let me get back to it. So I asked you about the vectors, but when an attacker is looking at Active Directory, are they just looking for credentials? Are they looking to cripple your system? What is it that they're looking to do? What is the mindset that's going on?
I see it in two things.
Mm-hmm.
One, Brandon mentioned this. When the attacker enters, it's not AD. So
Mm-hmm.
they are going from device to device, gathering credentials.
Okay.
They can then compare those credentials to what they enumerate from AD to see if any credential that they have already has domain level privileges in AD. And if they do, it's game over,
Mm-hmm.
right? The second thing that they do is they enumerate AD to look for areas that they can then hack, such as Kerberos delegation, SPN users that have privileges. So these are things that the attacker is looking for.
We got some good questions in already. I want to get to Ian's one, but not right away. This is from Craig Herter, and he asks, what are some of the best ways to limit dependency on Active Directory, and what is the direction we should be moving in? All right, you smiled first. Brandon's still pondering. Hold on, wait. Wait, I don't know who can answer this. I'm trying to read your facial expressions here. Who wants to take this one first? Brandon will take it. All right.
Yeah. So primarily, if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's the question is all right. If I don't have AD.
Well, no. You want to limit the dependency on AD.
Yep.
I'm going to get to a question like that too in a second. But
okay.
What is the way to limit the dependency on AD, and what is direction we should be moving in? So it may be kind of like what you're saying, but going back to my earlier question to Derek of this darn thing could bring down the castle. Is there ways to limit that? I mean.
Yeah, so to manage the risk that AD introduces, one of the things you could do would maybe be from, say, a directory services perspective,
mm-hmm.
maybe leverage something else that isn't as actively attacked or exploited as Active Directory. An example of that might be Okta, for
mm-hmm.
example, or some other IAM that you could go ahead and then leverage for directory services for accounts. What that would then do is separate the account dependency. You definitely need to find ways to make sure that ACLs or access control lists or security groups would then be able to integrate with the rest of maybe the directory services that AD provides, or you'd probably need to find something different to manage that as well. Something leveraging, MIT Kerberos, for example.
And by the way, are you saying, because essentially Ian Pointer, which is essentially sort of the tag of Craig Herter's question, asks, are any of the various AD replacements worth evaluating? I mean, can any of these, what you mentioned, be a full replacement?
Oh yeah, there are several large organizations who don't leverage Active Directory,
mm-hmm.
And will use things like, and I'm not promoting Okta here, it's just something, Okta or any of the other IAM solutions who are completely AD independent of their environment. And it also depends on maybe the structure of your organization. Are you using something like Surfaces if you're a Microsoft shop? Don't necessarily need it. If you're using Chromebooks, there are other ways through Google that you can kind of manage your directory infrastructure and access to objects. So yes, you do not need AD, but where you do have it, obviously why we're here, we should be looking at ways to secure it.
Yeah, Ian Pointer mentions he's chained to AD, but in a Marquis de Sade sort of context. So let me take both of those questions actually to you, Derek, of what are the best ways to limit dependency on AD, and in what direction should we be moving in? And per Ian Pointer's question, are any of the replacements worth evaluating?
So my first picture is me going to the doctor saying, "Doctor, I just read about these heart problems. Can I get rid of my heart and my body still function?" And the doctor would say, "Sure, we can get you a pig's heart. I mean, in that way you're not using your heart. But how many people have a pig's heart, right?" And so there are options. The issue is we have 21 years of tying things to Active Directory. Mm-hmm. And so the amount of effort to snip all of those connections is grandiose.
Mm-hmm. But then let me ask you this. If I was Greenfield starting Company X today, would it be wise to not start with Active Directory?
Yes.
And what road would you go down?
Depends on how cloud-centric I am.
I'm sorry,
if I'm cloud-centric, then I have quite a few options.
Right.
If I want to be still on-prem, NetWare. I mean.
Okay. What about you? If you were Greenfield today, Brandon, how would you start?
Yeah, I hate this answer, but it depends. To Derek's point, if we are more a cloud-based shop, leveraging primarily SaaS-based applications for back office services, it might make sense. If you're integrated with, say, maybe Azure as your public cloud solution, it might make sense to leverage Active Directory through Azure for some of the benefits you get out of that. So if it would depend for me where I'm at, what I'm doing, what the business goals are or objectives are, to probably answer that with any definition.
By the way, Paul Landsey responded, "NetWare, what decade is this?"
Exactly.
Hold it. I'm sorry, does NetWare, excuse my ignorance, does NetWare still exist?
It does.
It does? Okay. I have an image of seeing the box of the physical software of NetWare from years ago on somebody's shelf. All right, let me jump to Carlos Rodriguez's question, because this, we may be sort of expanding this question further afield here, but he's asking, what makes this whole Active Directory thing even more complicated? Yes. What about the infrastructure services side of Active Directory? These can negatively impact availability of other things. What is the hacker mindset? Going back to my question is, what are they thinking when they come in? And how do we protect against this kind of attack? So I'm assuming talking about essentially all the services that are taking advantage of Active Directory. Should we just be dealing with Active Directory at the core, or should we be dealing with those as well, just to further complicate our problems? Derek?
We should worry about everything. Okay. And I'm assuming the infrastructure immediately comes to my mind is DHCP, DNS. Mm-hmm. If we have certificate services, I mean, those are all being attacked. They're all being leveraged to get additional information to move laterally and gain privileges. So we need to look at those, of Kerberos as well as
mm-hmm.
everything else that's attached to Active Directory.
All right. By the way, I just want to warn everybody, we have 2 minutes left to get your bad ideas in. So please do. And there's a ton of them. So because in 2 minutes, we'll be throwing up our poll for that as well. How are you dealing with infrastructure services, Brandon, in your environment, in that, per just what Derek said, in that you've got the Active Directory issue, what we discussed at the beginning, and you got everything that's attaching to it as well. Is this a humanly possible problem to manage as you try to do it in your job anyways?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It is to a degree. I don't think you can nail everything. So what we have to do is we have to look at the risks that a particular, maybe a service in this case, presents from a likelihood, how likely is it, or the probability perspective, and then the impact to either the organization or the teams, and focus our efforts on remediating those issues first. And those might come across as, all right, Going back to the first question, how is an attacker getting into my AD environment? What are the vectors they're using? What's the attack surface look like? Looking at that, those are probably the things we want to focus on first, rather than a nondescript, maybe say, Derek brought up DNS or DHCP, a vulnerability where you definitely would want to patch. But if it's externally facing, you're going to want to get to it before. Maybe if it's internally facing, it fits in your patch window. Say it's 30 days or whatever, rather than escalate or elevating the increasing the time to remediate that finding. But it's probably a two answer to the question. We definitely want to make sure that we've got Active Directory secured, managing those two pieces of risk. The second area is if there's something that integrates. Say you've got info blocks for DNS and it has a dependency, or at least is integrated with Active Directory, making sure that that integration is secured as well. If it's not, if there's an insecure either communication via transport or authentication, it's an avenue of attack for a threat actor as well.
We have 42 bad ideas that have been submitted. Pretty impressive, gentlemen and ladies, and they and everybody else who's submitted as well. I want you to vote for your favorite bad idea, because in 10 minutes we will be playing the Department of Yes. And if you haven't clicked the button at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's video chat, please do that now and get in your questions as well as we're doing that. All right. Also, please get in your unique ideas. We want to hear, type unique in there. We want your unique ideas around dealing with Active Directory, and Derek and Brandon, we're going to address each one of those, or as many as we can possibly address. And by the way, please feel free to think far afield here. We are trying to challenge the mindset of Active Directory. And so let me ask you, Derek, how consistent, and you can speak for yourself and speak for your clients as well, how consistent and visible is the Active Directory security posture? And I think you kind of also mentioned it at the very beginning, like you see things that shock you. So for some clients, not visible at all, but for some others, maybe very visible. What essentially allows for lack of visibility and more visibility?
Lack of visibility for the client itself?
Well, yeah, for what your security posture is with Active Directory. Like you can say, oh, here's what our state of sort of controls and security with Active Directory is at this point, and knowing what that is at any given time, or not having a clue.
I see some things are very consistent, right? Some of the settings that aren't well known are almost always insecure. And this is what the attacker is going after. They can enumerate those with read access, and within a couple of steps, they can get privileges or move laterally or do something else. What
is not well known? I mean, I know getting credentials and moving laterally, especially if they have admin access. Is that what you're referring to, or?
Kerberos delegations, looking at primary group IDs, admin SD holders we talked about before, SPN users that have privileges. It's very common to have these settings not looked at and not be secured.
I would also assume, Brandon, throwing to you is, let's say you do look at them. How often do you look at them?
How often should you, or how often do you? Those
Answer
are two
both
different
questions.
Those are two different questions. Should you? It should probably be part of a regular, ideally automated process that you've got. We'll take a SIM, for example, security event and incident management tool, that you might be feeding the logs to, or maybe it's Splunk or Elastic, and developing or creating rules around those logs where you're sending those event logs to maybe not correlate, but surface events that are either of high risk or anomalous in the environment that you shouldn't typically see. So you're kind of getting both perspectives. But as it relates to consistency in AD, I don't know that it ever really takes place. Once AD is set up and configured, it's in a good state. Updates to the actual schema without adding new features or updates from Microsoft are usually where those structural changes happen. Microsoft has been, in my opinion, really good in allowing operations team to maintain consistency in an AD environment and build and configure templates through group policy objects, or GPOs. Now, if those aren't managed strategically or with kind of a forward-looking mindset, it can also allow for inconsistencies where you may believe one policy that disallows an action, say via conditional access, entitlement management, sensitivity labels, something along those lines. Another policy may come along and stomp it out or supersede it and allow an action. So you might have an AD environment that's been set up for, to Derek's point, 20 years ago. Nothing has maybe changed in the environment from a policy perspective, but the folks who set it up probably didn't look 20 years out and say, all right, what is this going to look like? And you really have to, I mentioned that Microsoft has good tools to secure it, but going back and looking at some of those things can be challenging, if not a nightmare.
All right, I got a question here from Sean Bowen, and he says, who, by the way, who's the CISO over at World Fuel Services, and he says, I don't know exactly how to ask this, but would like to discuss the responsibilities of different teams using AD or managing IAM/accounts in general. It is both a customer service/service provider tool, but it is also a security critical tool. Good point. So how do you balance the responsibility of the platform between security and user services? Darn good question that Sean asked. How do you balance that, Derek?
It's very difficult.
Well, he knows that. That's why he's asking. You
need things on top of Active Directory. You have to layer Active Directory and get different in routes into it. AD itself does have delegation, but it's just not enough. And Microsoft, they have some solutions that you can purchase to throw on top, but it's not really designed to solve that issue.
All right, I'm gonna open this up. I'm assuming Tenable offers some solution on top, or yes, no?
Not for administration.
Not for administration. So what do you suggest then is the thing that you suggest that people be putting, quote, on top, or is this a third-party service we're looking at?
It's absolutely a third-party service.
Okay.
It has to be.
So what are we talking about here?
It depends on what the overall need is. I mean, you're going to have to break AD apart so that the different components of the organization has access to those parts of AD without other parts. Because what's going to happen is if someone has the ability to change something, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brandon, are you using any kind of third-party service currently?
We are not. I know there are some out there that kind of fit this role or the ask. I would take a step back and say, where those deltas between adding functionality or capability start to intersect with an uncomfortable, or maybe it's outside of the risk appetite of an organization. Being able, Derek mentioned it at high level, and it's something that I see quite a bit, is breaking those areas off into different domains within an AD forest, where you might have a riskier AD setup that might talk to your corporate, and the trust between the two, making sure that if something happens in this riskier environment, that it doesn't propagate up into your corporate environment where the crown jewels are stored, right? So you give the riskier environment a little less. It's a little less controlled. You definitely want to make up for that with visibility, but you don't allow it to talk to maybe the more critical areas of your environment, whether that's through AD or some other mechanism.
All right. Let me remind people, we are just a couple of minutes away from playing our game, but click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's video chat. Let's talk about privileges and the security issues around privileges in general. I mean, the obvious thing is someone's got some kind of admin access and, well, now everything's exploding in our face. But what are kind of the lesser known issues around privileges that many might not be thinking about? Derek?
Backdoors. Backdoors can easily be created. I mean, look at all of the attacks over the last 12 months. And after the analysis, it comes out, they've been here for 6 to 9 months. So there's so many in routes with privileges and creating persistence and backdoors. It's almost impossible to track them all. Brandon mentioned earlier, permissions at the domain level, which allows for a DC sync. That's not a domain admin it's actually one setting. And so it's very difficult to track these things and maintain these things. So privileges can do more than just be a domain admin. You have user rights, you have permissions within Active Directory, you have permissions within group policy to push out things in group policy, as well as permissions for files and folders which are holding other aspects of AD and other services.
All right, we got a call that just came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. I don't think everyone got a chance to read all these 42 bad ideas because there's a lot in here. There have been a few voted up. There was one that I saw that squeaked through. Well, here, this one's voted up the most right here. All right. So, Derek, I'm going to make you play first. You know how this goes. You have to say yes to this bad idea. It can't be facetious, and I have to explain what is the silver lining, why you want to actually implement this. I'm judge and jury on it all. Again, if this is your bad idea, speak up. We want to hear from you. Here we go. Give all users domain administrators to save money. So I guess, give them the domain admin level to save money on your IT help desk costs. Why is this a good idea?
Well, that's actually not a bad idea at all. I think spreading the load of what IT has to deal with on a day in and day out basis allows them to deal with other aspects. So that actually could be a good solution, because you're going to save money. You're also going to be able to allow IT to do more.
Good point. I like it. Bravo! All right. Brandon, why do you want to do this?
I agree with Derek. If we give our users, our employees, elevated access to their environments, they're going to be able to do what they need, not bug tech desk or help desk. We don't have to worry as much on the security side about who's got admin, because we know everybody does. We can now focus on things like, say, application whitelisting. So we're going to allow you to install those print drivers, but we're going to push out application whitelisting to say, all right, you guys have admin. We're going to give you a certain set of applications that you can install, and those that don't conform to that, we're not going to allow you to access, but you'll still be able to do some of these other things that generally require elevated privileges. We are going to look for ways to say, while we can do that and make your lives easier, take work away from help desk and our corporate systems team, what can we do to further secure and mature the security program even while doing that? MFA, login and everything else.
Very well thought out. I like it. Oh, yeah! All right. This next one didn't get a single vote here. In fact, I'm going to vote for it right now. But I liked it when I saw it come in the stream. Now, I have not, again, seen all 42 of these as well. But it goes to Dutch. I knew this is Dutch's that came in. So I'm going to throw this to you first, Brandon. Again, I want to know why you want to deploy this and explain to me how this is actually going to operate in your environment. Eliminate Active Directory and instead use a physical telephone switchboard and have it staffed by the CEO's teenage children as the operators. Why do you want to do this?
I want to do that because it's a good opportunity for us to maybe leverage the switchboard. We may not use it as a telephone switchboard. What we may do is take that switchboard, and it's a legacy tool in a showpiece, if you will, at the front of our data center, where that telephone switchboard is actually a network routing, switching, and comm closet with patch panels in it. So we make it very easy for the CEO's children to come in and patch things up, make sure that availability is there, work as a quasi. I
don't know where this is going, Brandon. I have no idea. I'm giving you a lot of rope on this one, but I have no idea what's going. I'm going to cut you off right here.
Kill it.
Oh, I'm killing you. Derek, try again.
Who asked that?
That was
good.
Dutch. Only Dutch comes up with stupid ideas like
done.
This one.
Oh, no, it's not a stupid. No. Wait. This is not
Derek, yes.
idea.
Why you want to do this?
This is fantastic. I mean, first of all, I like the CEO's children. I mean, I'd love to see them get involved. I mean,
now you're heading down the right path.
This is a perfect opportunity where they do not have to get an IT degree or any kind of education, and they just answer the phone.
Yes.
And I think it's a great way to get them involved.
Get them involved. All right. Hooray! Excellent. And
Well done, Derek.
And in fact, I'll give you this. All right. Very good. That's where I was aiming.
Got a winner.
There we have a winner there. I want to. So, by the way, Jeff Baldwin, who has the first one, and Dutch, just be ready in about 5 minutes. We're going to bring both of you on for you to defend why your idea is the absolute worst of the two. And the two of you will be playing What's Worse to determine which one truly is the worst in terms of what would cause more damage to the company. I also want to throw out, what you could actually mix both of these ideas and do have an old-timey switchboard and have the teenagers there. It would make it very visually interesting. And you could go so far as to lie to the teenagers and make them think that they're actually switching stuff, but it's actually a giant Fisher-Price toy that's actually not doing anything at all whatsoever. All right, we got more questions coming in. Make sure you register for next week's video chat if you haven't already. Oh, this one from Paul Lanzi, who he is the COO over at Remediant. They are a PAM company, Privileged Access Management. And he asked this question to the panel. Can you ever really consider a domain-joined computer to be in a fully zero-trust state? Good question. Brandon, what do you say to that?
I believe that you could, yes. Now, when we're looking at zero trust...
And how would that look?
Well, when you're looking at zero trust, typically what people think of is, hey, I'm only going to, basically network segmentation only down to the host level.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look at it in what zero trust is, it's user identity awareness and it's device identity awareness. So with the device, if we've got a device that is trusted, if we've got a device that is following common protocol as far as maybe the correct build, the correct agents, the agents are functioning properly, then we give, and it's an Active Directory joined machine. If we have the rest of the environment set up to say, all right, this device we have confirmed is Brandon's. Brandon has authenticated, the device is authenticated. It is allowed to do these things at a network level, at an ACL level. We're going to go ahead and allow it, and everything else we shut off. I absolutely believe it is possible to do it in an AD environment, yes.
Derek, what do you think? Adding to that, agree, disagree?
I think the only thing I would add is you can never allow human to touch it. And then, yes, you can obtain zero trust. But as soon as that human touches it, I think it's game over. There's too many things that can be done in an organization. If we cut them off the internet, cut them off email, then maybe. But as soon as we allow internet and email, it's the long story of, if you want a user to click on something, just give it a name like funny YouTube kittens. Don't click on this, and they're going to click on it.
So with that being said, is the whole true concept of zero trust a misnomer? I mean, just because of what you guys just said, in that you're not going to be able to truly achieve it at any level?
The zero trust is a process, and it's
right,
not a technology.
Right.
It's layering, and it's adding certain components, and we can get there. But we're going to have to change a lot in the way that we do things, because some of zero trust doesn't fit within every organization.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's bring on, hey, we're at the time. Let's bring on both Jeff Baldwin and Dutch as well. We'll play the What's Worse. Oh, by the way, we do not have enough unique tips. Come on. We got one, I think, so far. Dutch isn't one. Dutch isn't on. Dutch is gone. Did we lose Dutch?
I wanted to talk to Dutch.
Where did we lose Dutch? We lost Dutch. All right. Well, bring Jeff Baldwin on. Does anyone want to be a second for Dutch? We often have that. And by the way, I've just done my hair. I've got sort of a Wolverine thing going with my hair here. All right. Well, all right. We got Jeff on. Jeff, thank you for joining us. Defend us why. I'm actually hearing myself through your speakers, but that's okay. Explain to us why your idea is truly the worst, and worse than Dutch's, which, let me remind everybody, Dutch's idea is having the CEO's children as switchboard operators and dumping the Active Directory altogether. Why is yours worse than that?
direction's unclear. So is it actually bad?
So you have to defend why you truly have the worst idea here,
So
as
mine-
compared to Dutch's bad idea. I want you to
You're
argue to
right.
both Brandon and Derek.
Yeah, it's easier to do the other argument where you could say things like, well, InfoSec is everybody's responsibility, so this is just an extension of that. Now system administration is everybody's responsibility. So everybody's trained in InfoSec, everybody's trained in system administration. So, and then you can also have governance structure around that. Say, we have an approved products list. Anything on the approved products list you can install. Anything that you do out of bounds with that, we have mutual checks and balances. So everybody else is a system admin, so they'll all see what you're doing in the audit logs. And then you can kind of vote and kind of do a confederation of everybody's kind of their own entity.
So let me pause you here for Jeff. I want you to argue why it stinks, not why you think it's a brilliant idea.
I know it's like I meant to do it badly.
So the thing is, what would happen if this bad idea was implemented?
So
Carlotta's going to coming on.
How it would fail is then if you didn't put the governance structure. So so you didn't have that governance structure, you didn't have the training, and then you had everybody just doing everything and everybody deleting everything. It'd be total chaos, and everything would go crap. And somebody would do something and hose the whole network. The whole thing's ransomware. There's no backups. Everything's gone. So it'd be total chaos.
All right, Jeff, we have Carlotta Sage, who's now going to defend Dutch's bad idea. Again, why it's truly the worst in your... I think we have two situations of chaos. Carlotta, what do you think about Dutch's idea? Why do you think that's far worse than what Jeff suggested by making everybody an administrator?
Well, bringing teenagers into any IT area is probably a really bad idea to begin with, because they're just going to poke and jiggle at everything, and who knows what they're going to break. But but you're going to get two things. They're either going to whine incessantly at you at how terrible this all is and how can you make their life easier while they're doing TikToks of random things, or they're going to go to the CEO. This is the CEO's children, right? And they're going to whine at that person. I mean, there's the potential for either making your life incredibly miserable or incredibly good by these teenagers going and whining at their parent on how awful this is, that parent comes in and actually fixes something. So,
this could be a situation where you make the situation so bad that it circles around to make it even better than it was before.
Exactly.
So,
it will make your life.
Brandon, go ahead.
Didn't Dutch's idea also include dumping Active Directory? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, she had to dump Active Directory.
I have to dump Active Directory. Oh, in that case, yeah, definitely. We're going to do all of our permissions through TikTok. Like that's exactly what a teenager is going to do.
All right.
And that just seems like a really horrible idea.
I'm throwing this to you, Brandon and Jeff. Again, this is, Brandon and Derek. Who's Brandon and Derek? I throw it to you. Which of these two ideas is truly the worst? Which would cause the more damage? What do you think, Brandon?
I think what would cause more damage, because we spoke to maybe what some of the pros would have been to, I'm sorry, Jeff's.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we could still do on top of it. I did not hear any comment or ideas around what we would do to replace Active Directory. So we would just be kind of stuck. There would be an impact to the business. I think not only because I got bombed on Dutch's question, I think that is probably, and he won. I think that is more likely the one that I would vote for is the worst idea.
Jeff's is the worst.
No, Dutch's.
Oh, Dutch is the worst. I'm sorry, yes. Dutch is the worst because okay. Derek, do you agree Dutch's or Jeff's idea is the worst?
I don't want to be combative, but I'm going to use some technical proof, right? Let's look at SolarWinds and ZingLocker. Both of those attacks in the code check to see if the existing compromised device was joined to AD. And if it wasn't, it stopped the attack. So I think if we get rid of AD, some of these attacks can never happen. So that's why I think...
We have interns.
So you think... No, but you think Jeff's... Because Jeff's... Then you think...
I think Jeff's is the worst. That's correct.
The worst.
Because actually, Dutch's might work.
Might eliminate some problems. All right.
Yes.
Excellent. Split decision here. Carlotta, thank you for coming on. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. We can take them off. All right. Good answers, both of you. By the way, I want to just say the two of you are handling this very well. I know this chat we do is a little bizarre and a little odd sometimes, but I just want to say kudos to a very creative answer, by the way, on that last one, Derek. Because, yeah, it would eliminate it. Yes, it would introduce a lot of new problems, but it would eliminate some problems. So it's better to have some kind of net balance rather than only negative balance. So you still have Active Directory, but now you've got all these, everybody with an admin problem.
Yep.
Or an admin access for that matter. Which, by the way, think about that at any organization. Say everyone had to learn administrative security right now. I mean, that would be right now two tips. I think, oh, these are unique tips. Put them up. We got a poll for 2 tips. Let's see them. Throw it up, Andrew. You guys have to do better audience-wise coming up with unique tips. Why is it you can come up with a lot of bad ideas, but not nearly as many good ideas? 42 to 2? What's going on? All right. Let's talk about ransomware. How does ransomware leverage Active Directory during an attack? Derek.
So ransomware is going to leverage Active Directory via group policy. Mm-hmm. So it's going to get privileges. It's going to modify group policy. Since nearly everything is connected, right? The keys to the kingdom, everything's connected. It now pushes out the ransomware to all of his devices automatically using Active Directory. Game over.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, what would you add to this?
I would add to that, in Active Directory environments, there is oftentimes an implicit trust between either workstations when they're in the same location or similar location, and then the absolute trust with the domain controllers, whether they be read-only or primary, whatever it is. And those avenues of communication are commonly leveraged to spread and propagate ransomware throughout an environment. So it can spread through an unpatched service, a misconfigured system, where that communication is allowed. But then also, once we're able to get to an Active Directory controller, or once a threat actor is able to get to an Active Directory controller, or a software management system, such as, say, WSUS, SCCM, Intune, once a threat actor is able to get it to there and push it to the rest of the environment, maybe it is via GPO, like Derek mentioned. Those tools, however, are going to be, that's what they're designed to do, is push code out, push applications out, push configuration changes out. So those can be very easily leveraged to spread ransomware to the entirety of the environment.
I like these 2 unique tips that came in. One of them's already been voted up 5 votes already. And please, there's a lot more than 5 of you on, so please vote on these unique tips. And I want to know if anyone's actually done this. So I'm interested to know if either of you have done this or anybody in the chat room's truly actually done this. No users in enterprise admins. So you got no enterprise admins at all, and only 1 or 2 domain admins and properly assigned segment permissions use a password management vault system. By the way, speak up if you did this. Have you done this? Do you know anyone who's done this, Derek?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes? It's exactly the design you should be using.
And do you see people doing this, actually?
Yes, I do.
What percentage would you say people are using this?
Well, that's a different question. Believe it or not, it's not that bad. Now, let's split that.
I'm sorry. Oh, that was Matthew Thompson, by the way.
Enterprise admins being empty, quite often. I mean, 50% or more. Domain admins only having a couple, not as often. That's probably less than 10%.
What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I can tell you, and I probably don't have the same visibility that Derek has, but I can tell you with the company that I know, this is the way it's done. When you say that there's only maybe a couple domain admins, it's usually a low number, right? It's not, an entirety of an IT shop if it's larger than 50 people, right? It's generally very restricted. Less than 10, I think, is probably a better number for that. In addition to when we're looking at how those privileges are assigned out and how we're getting access to these environments, these secure environments, the use of privileged access workstations. So you don't need to have an enterprise admin. You can have a regular admin for regular work that has to then jump through a PAW, typically 3-tier PAW, privileged access workstation, to get up to those where they would be able to use maybe say a domain admin, for example, but not enterprise. So I kind of the answer there, have I seen it? Yes, but there are good ways to implement that as well.
All right, I want to remind people, because we're going to be changing this in 5 minutes. If you have not registered for next week's video chat, please click that link on the bottom, because it's going to change in exactly 5 minutes. Please do that. Let me get, do we have any more questions in? No more questions in. Oh, I also mentioned the other unique idea that came in here. Use the protected groups, use the protected users group for your privileged accounts. And excuse my ignorance, what is the protected users group? What exactly is that, Derek?
So it's a newer group, an Active Directory, that actually strips away a lot of the attack vectors against privileged accounts. So it deals with NTLM, it deals with the password and how it's encrypted. So there's a lot of benefits, and it absolutely should be used. But this seems rarely used.
This seems like a no-brainer. I mean,
that's
where you put your privileged accounts. Let me ask you, if it's a no-brainer, that's where you should do it. Similar to the last question, how many are actually doing it?
Not many.
Really? Brandon, have you seen the same?
I'm sorry, I answered a question. I want to make sure. Could you repeat the question? I answered a question in chat.
The protected users group is a new thing in Active Directory. I didn't realize it. Use it for your privileged accounts. By the way, again, speak up if this was your comment here or your tip. It's designed for privileged accounts because it strips away attack vectors, as Derek was mentioning. Are people actually doing that? Are they actually using it? Derek says not enough for using it, or barely any.
I think folks are still, to your point, you didn't know it was new or a newer feature or a object in Active Directory. I don't think it strips away everything. I think it reduces the ability for that particular user, but it's much better than just a standard regular user.
Okay, well, obviously, as we're seeing. By the way, that was Jason Dance who threw that in, so thank you very much, Jason, on that as well. All right, let's get to wrapping this thing up. Okay, so let me I'm going to, whoops, here, let me get this over here. I'm going to just share the screen. And in about 2 minutes, well, actually, Andrew, you can go ahead and change the link at the bottom of the screen right now. And I'm going to just share my screen to wrap this up. And then I'm going to want the two of you to provide your commentary or your last thoughts on our very topic right now. So, all right, just as a reminder, join our video chat next week, Hacking Threat Intelligence, an hour of critical thinking about what to trust in order to take necessary action. This will be an interesting conversation. So if you have not registered for that link is now gone, but you can always go to CISOseries.com and click the register for video chats button. Always available there. Let me also mention that if you're sticking around, starting in 90 minutes from right now, we've got cybersecurity headlines that starts at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Our guest is my co-host for Defense in Depth, Jeff Belknap, who's the CISO over at LinkedIn, and he's going to be providing context on the top 8 stories in cybersecurity for the week. If you are subscribed to Cybersecurity Headlines, which is a daily 6-minute news show of just the top 8 news stories in cybersecurity every week, you will obviously automatically get that into your feed. You can always go to crowdcast.io/CISO series to register for that, or for any of the video chats for that matter, or just go to the CISOseries.com and get that same link on register for video chats. Stick around for our meetup. You see that link at the bottom? Go ahead and click on that now. We'll be over there in just a few minutes and having our fun meetup there. So I hope to see most of you over there as well. And lastly, tell your friends, tell your friends to join us every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Huge thanks to your company, Derek, your new company, because weren't you at Allsid prior to this? Yes, you were at Allsid. So when this was booked, they were Allsid, but now they're Tenable. So thank you very much, Tenable, for sponsoring this and for being a phenomenal sponsor of the CISO series in general. If you would like to sponsor a video chat, guess what? We have exactly 3 slots left in 2021. Just ping me at david@CISOseries.com, and we would love to do a video chat with you. All right, we have a little over 5 minutes left. I'm going to start with you, Derek. Last final thoughts and any plea you would like to make for Tenable or an offer or anything like that around this, but last final advice on Active Directory for our audience.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Brandon kind of was talking about with regard to continuous and trying to see these changes. So there are some attacks that a SIEM can't see very well. DC Sync and DC Shadow, for example. Mm-hmm. There are also solutions, Tenable AD, that does detection of attack paths that open up in real time. Mm-hmm. So when a change occurs by any human, any third-party tool, anything, it looks to see if that can be leveraged. It can also detect DC Sync, DC Shadow, golden ticket attacks in real time. Mm-hmm. And so that information then is pushed to the SIEM, very contextual and precise. Instead of putting that onus on the SOC uses this quality information. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Very good. And if someone wants to contact you for further information about Tenable AD, how should they reach you?
dmelber@tenable.com.
Go ahead and throw it in the chat if you want.
I will.
All right. Brandon, your last thoughts about Active Directory and what your general advice for the community is.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, David, for having me on today. Derek, it was good to get a chance to talk with you and go through this together. Jeff and Carlotta, thanks for hopping on with us.
Yes.
To answer the question, what would my suggestions be? They're very much in line with Derek's, taking a little bit of a different approach. However, that visibility, those detective capabilities can come through other mechanisms as well. Derek mentioned the Tenable product, possible shortcomings of a SIEM, but there's also things that we can do commercially or non-commercially, we can do for free by creating basically tokens in the environment that if touched, tampered in any way, might be really good indications that there's something going on in your environment.
Is that a tokens environment? Is that the equivalent of like a honeypot type of thing, or
similar to it? Let's say you create a lot of different computer objects or that aren't going to be used in your environment, but they're for detective capabilities only. User accounts with privileged access, but don't really do anything. If you wanted to get down to tokens at a file level, all right, is anybody touching these files that are open to the world? Why would they be in there? Those types of things. So yeah.
All right. Well, good advice. All right. Well, I want to thank Derek Melber of Tenable and Brandon Greenwood over at overstock.com. And if you would like to talk to the two of them, myself, producer Andrew, or your fellow colleagues in the wonderful environment of security, which is, again, we have a fantastic community. So thank you. Click that darn button up at the bottom of the screen because we're going to now go over there and have our meetup for the next half hour. So I hope to see you over there. And again, you'll see, I'll come on and explain quickly how it works if it doesn't make immediate sense to you. But head on over there. We'll see you in a moment. Thank you, everybody.